Welcome back, CSE 121, to part 2 of our ex26 color labels with tkinter. And at the end of the last video, I had a little glitch with Replit using tkinter, and I've had that in the past, and I thought that was taken care of, but there's still some issues here. And the one thing that fixed it was actually not refreshing it, not rerunning it and clearing everything else. It was actually forking this. So it has some issue with the repel, but it's working now. So if you're seeing this, it should be working. It shouldn't be anything with your screen. So if it says display is not capable, it's not that your display can't see it. I'm on a MacBook. I should have no problem seeing this. So this is okay now. So I'm going to keep plowing through. We're going to put some buttons down here. So I'm going to copy all these labels. Or actually, maybe I'll just copy one because we're going to have to make changes anyway. And I'll put a couple spaces in here. And I'm going to put a comment just to denote that they're buttons. So I'll just put buttons down here. And I'm going to call my first button btn1. I used to do that with ActionScript. So I'll call it btn1. And it's not the label type, it's a button type. And that'll have a capital B. And that'll have a capital B button. And it's still going to be M is going to be its master. So it's going to be based on that. And we're not going to change the text. And we're going to change the text. I'll just call the first one button 1. And you can have a space in there as long as it's in quotes. That's fine. I'm not going to change the background color. I'm not going to change the width or anything. And I guess I could put the font in here. Maybe I'll take it out from being bold. Now that I made these bold, maybe I don't need these bold. And it's going to be a little smaller. So let me put like 20. And I'm going to take away these things with foreground and background and all that kind of stuff. And you can put something called padding in here where you do pad Y and pad X. But we'll just see if we need that. So that's a little shorter right now. And now, again, just like the labels, they won't show up unless you pack them. So let me pack one of these. So I'm just going to go down here and I'll just type btn1.pack and I'll put the parentheses. And I won't put anything in here yet, because I don't want it to be over here. I want it to stack under here. But let's just see what happens. So I'm going to hit stop, and I'll run it again. And you can see what happened. It did put it over there. It's continuing this side left. It doesn't know that there's a break. And we'll be able to fix that. And one way we'll fix that, now this is the way the button looks, and that's fine. We're going to use the button like that. But we want the buttons to stack under here. And what we're going to have to do is kind of like we do with HTML if you put something like in a div, in a separate area. Because right now they're all just block elements, and we can't just put a line break in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to make something called a frame. So I'm going to go down here, I'll put it right after here, and I'll just call it FR1. I'll make 2 frames, and I'll make one called FR1 equals, and we're going to call it a frame, and it's going to be based on M. And then I'll make a second one for the buttons, and I'll call it FR2, and it'll also be based on M. It'll be a frame like that. So I'm going to make that. Now what that means is these will no longer be based on that. Picture this being the ocean. We're putting these on a little raft. The raft now is going to be FR1. So I'm going to make this FR1. I'm going to make this one FR1. So they're all going to be sitting on FR1 instead of M, if you think of it like that. And then this button is going to be sitting on FR2. And frames, just like the way the labels were by default, should naturally stack. So it should stack the frame 2, which button 1 is inside of, underneath here. So let's see if that works. And it doesn't so far, and the reason it's not is because we have to pack the frame. We didn't pack the frame yet. So we have to go down here and pack the frame. So we'll do it after the buttons, or we could do it before the buttons. I don't think it matters. Let's see if we could do it before the buttons. We'll do fr1.pack, and I'll even do fr2.pack since we have them both there. And I'll stop this, and I'll run it again. And now that seems to be working, because now we're packing them, and it doesn't seem to mind the order, although I'm following the order that we're using up here, so that's okay. So there you can see my button, and without a lot of work, we can't change the background of this, so I'm just going to leave that gray right now. But there's the button, and if we can put a little space in these, you could even put a little space on the frames. I think we can do pad. Let me just try this. Let me see if we could do pad Y equals, and I'll just put like 12 or something. See if that works. See if this gives us any kind of separation here. And again, there's all kinds of resources about this, so I'm not sure if pad Y works on the frames, but let me just see if it does. And it seems to. And looking at that now, I'm going to take the padding off frame 1, and I'll just leave it on the buttons. So I'll get rid of this here, but I'll just leave the padding on frame 2. So that creates a little division there. So that looks okay, and I'll stop that. And now that this seems to be working, I'm going to copy these buttons, and I'll make 2 more, and I'll call this button 2, I'll call this button 3, and then I'll call this button 2 in the text, and I'll call it button 3 in the text, and I'm not changing colors or anything like that. So, and make sure I don't have a 1 in there. So that's okay. So we have everything created, and we have everything packed down here, both frames, and now I have to make sure that I'm packing the buttons as well. So I'll paste these down here and make sure that you have button 2 and button 3, that you have everything accounted for down here. So this is all the packing stuff. So there's all these things are separate elements. So I have 1, 2, and then I have 6. So I have 8 elements that we're actually going to be packing. So we have 8 elements that we're creating, 8 elements that we're packing, in addition to our original title and our original master here of our class. So that looks okay. Let me run it and just see what we have outputting here. And that's what we want. This is actually what we want. And I could stretch this out, make this a little smaller so it looks nice. So that looks pretty good. I don't know if you can move this around, if it lets you move it around. Oh yeah, it lets you move it around in here. I guess I wouldn't mess around with that too much, because this is all being recreated in a browser, so it's not really a window, so I wouldn't mess around with that too much. But what we're going to do next, and this shouldn't take long, is we're going to put functions on button 1, button 2, button 3 that are going to change these colors. And then you're going to put a 4th button that's going to say reset. So let's make some functions here. And this is regular Python, so this isn't hard to do. And you could do this even before this starts, although you might want to do it after the title or something, just to kind of make sure this is at the top. So I'm going to go here and make a function in the same way we always do, def, and I'll just call it dark red. I'll make one called dark red. And what I'm going to do with dark red is I'm going to change this label to dark red. So I'm going to say lab1, which is my label, and I'm going to say config. They use a config property when you're going to change things on it. So I'm going to say config, not when you create it, but when you change things. You can configure it, so you're going to have to change it. So it's a config property. And what we're going to change in here is we're just going to make the background color different. So I'm going to copy it right out of here and put it in here. And BG, so instead of being FF0000, we could make this like 99. We'll make it darker. So that's what's going to happen. Now, this is actually the function, so we have to call the function. And to call the function, like we do in JavaScript, in Intro to Computing, we use like an on-click method. We use a command method in here, and it's going to be on the button. So I'm going to go to button 1, and I'm going to go after the last font property here, and I'm going to put a comma, and I'm going to put command equals, and you don't actually put this in quotes, and you don't put a little parentheses. I'm just going to put dark red. And that's all you have to do. So that's running a command on that button that's going to run this function that should change the configuration of the label to dark red. And stop this and run it and see if button 1 works. If that works, then it'll be easy to kind of do this to other buttons. And there it is. Let's try button 1. And it works. That's all we need to do. So now that we can do that, we need 2 more functions and we need 2 more commands. So I'll do the functions first and make sure I unindent. Now this one I'll call dark green, and I'll make it 009900, because that's what it's going to change to. And I'll make another function, get rid of that indent, and I'll change this one to 000099, because that's going to be blue. And I'll change this name to dark blue. And you could always make the numbers lower if you need to. You know, like 66 or something like that if you had to go lower. So now we have our 3 functions, and now we just have to do our commands. And I'm going to make sure that I put a comma here and a space. You don't have to have spaces, but I'm doing that to be consistent. And this one's going to be called dark green. It might give you a hint to let you do that. So if you start typing it, if you start typing dark green, there it comes up. And if this one is going to be dark blue, that comes up. So that helps you with the little hints there. So that looks okay. So those buttons should change this. So I'm just going to hit stop and run it again. And I should be able to change those colors. And I'll move this over, and there's button 1 changing to dark red, button 2 changing to dark, oh, and what happened here? And I forgot to change in my functions, I forgot to change this has to be label 2, and this has to be label 3. So that's good. You might do those things too. So I'll just try it again. And there's button 1, button 2, and button 3. So that changed them. Now we're going to make one more button that's going to turn this back to the way they were. So I'm going to let you do that. I'm not even going to do that because I did it on the first one, but you already know how to make a function. You're probably going to make a function that says def reset, and you're probably going to make another button that says reset, and that button is going to probably make these three things go back to their normal colors. That's your hint. So to finish this off, you're going to put a reset button that you click on that's going to change these things back to their original. And you have everything here you need, so it shouldn't be that hard to do. And then when you're done, since we're not doing this in the Replit classroom, you're just going to go here. Once you're all done, you're going to share it, and you're going to share the link, and you're going to copy it, and you're just going to add a comment into the ex26 in my Warren, and you're just going to put it in there and share that and make sure it opens in a new window. So that'll be the end of ex26, and we may do another exercise using this as our last exercise if we can, but we'll see how this goes.